Well, the DCU has their Superman and Lois. Yeah, it's David Cornsweat. Lois will be played by Rachel Brosnahan. So there you go. The plus side of this casting is in the looks of them. They do look the part. David Cornsweat, I've always said, looks like Henry Cavill's little brother. So if you can't have Henry, hey, we'll go with David. Probably needs to hit the gym, but he's got some time. A little skinny there. As for Rachel, she looks more akin to a Lois that's more in line like Margot Kidder was, and certainly, oh, damn it, I'm forgetting her name. I love the show, Superman and Lois. But the lady playing her there is also the same idea, you know, that Margot Kidder aesthetic, if you will, for Lois Lane. As far as their acting prowess, I know nothing of either. But the story is they tested and beat out everybody else. And my guess is they had them test together. And they said, well, this will work. There's chemistry between them and all this sort of thing. The usual thing you hear. And to a certain extent, I'm sure there's truth to that. Certainly in deciding who would be Lois. But Cornsweat, I suspect, pretty much had the part from the get-go. Maybe not completely, but I got reasons to suspect why. Not just, I mean, yes, the obvious argument is that he's similar in appearance to Henry Cavill, but that could also be in the sense that both he and Henry have that Superman look, and David certainly has it as Henry did. And so there's that to think of. Some of the other actors that were tossed around, Nicholas Hoult, I never saw him as a potential for Superman. Some of the villains, perhaps, but apparently they're moving on to the Sarsgaard brothers or whatever. I forget, and one of them might be Luther, and maybe Nicholas will be Brainiac. I don't know, or they tried and he couldn't get the part. You know, he lost out on Batman, and now he's lost out on this too. I'd be kind of sad. But I never really, I just couldn't picture it. With David, it's very easy to picture it. Hopefully he can do the part. But also some of the images of him, you know, you could see him as being this sort of, you know, bright-eyed optimist, gee whiz type personality that Superman exudes more in Clark Kent, but also the ideals and values of Superman. You can see that being delivered by this guy. But David Cornsweat was a name that was been tossed around for quite some time. This goes years ago now, when there was rumors about what are they going to do with Superman? Is Henry Cavill ever going to come back? Oh, there was trouble. They didn't get along with Henry. All this type of stuff, and that he would be replaced. And David Cornsweat was a guy's name who would show up in that. Now, how does that happen? Does it just hit David himself putting his hat in the ring? Is it his agent? Is it? But is it probably people at Warner's were thinking, here's a guy who might have it. You know, this might be someone to look at, and that sort of thing. This sort of thing happens quite a bit. Henry himself was in the running to be Superman in Superman Returns, but he lost out to Brandon Routh. And so when the time came to cast for Man of Steel, he won that, and he got the role. So a similar situation could be here. They decided to move on from Henry, and this guy's name was obviously probably, you know, right on the list from the get-go. Looked at other people. Maybe James Gunn was looking for something else. Maybe he wanted to see the others and ultimately decided, yeah, okay, David was the one we'll go with. Or he might not have been the choice. The rumor is that Robert Pattinson was not Matt Reeves' choice, but the studio tipped the scale towards Pattinson, and that Nicholas Hoult, again, might have been. I mean, it's just a rumor. Don't know that there's truth to that, but that he would have preferred Nicholas Hoult as Batman. But here, in recent events, to suddenly announce this rather than holding off till, of course, I don't know. It looks like everybody's bailing on San Diego Comic Cons. Maybe DC will too. But the disaster of the Flash film, I thought it could have troubles. It obviously did from the get-go, most notably its star. But I thought it would do better than it did. Maybe even eke out a small profit. But wow, I did not see, and that is bad no matter how many excuses you want to make, and especially on Gunn's part. Hey, I didn't make that. And okay, I did the George Clooney thing, but yeah, that's not the worst part of it. There's a lot of stuff wrong with it. I didn't hate it as much as I've seen far worse, but there's a huge problem in there. I think we all know. So, what have you? That's the deal. They're in that position. So suddenly, hey, look, here's something else. Shut up about the Flash. Here's our new Superman. And so that might have been, look, that's it. We're going with him. And perhaps metrics within social media, which can be misleading. I think how many times you got to learn that lesson. But perhaps his name came up the most. And, of course, a lot of people at Warner's may have been pushing for him based on his name showing up in the past. A lot of the other guys had never heard of him. But he won out, and that's the deal. He's been cast. As for Rachel, that probably is more on certainly her appearance, but also how she tested with him. That's very important. If they work well together and is believable as this couple and everything, then she gets the part, and there you go, and that's the deal. So anyway, just on appearance, yes, this is rather positive. They do very much look the part, and in a classic sense of Superman and Lois. The problem is, oh man, is the franchise a mess? And no matter what they do, they stumble and stuff. There's not a lot of positives that I find in what Gunn has announced for what they intend to do. Now, it's just a few titles here and there and some elements of those stories. It's a bit perplexing that Batman is going to be this father while Superman is a much younger man and all that. That sounds very similar to the setup they already did. I don't understand that. I don't understand the Authority being a part of Superman. An Authority movie, I can understand Gunn, a guy like that, being attracted to that. But as far as I'm concerned, that should be one of their Elseworlds films. You just read the comics with Authority crossing over with DC. It's never worked. The Authority was better off on its own. And I don't really see it working here either. A lot of the other titles, I'm not sure about. Wonder Woman I don't know what they're going to do with Gal Gadot. If at 1 minute she's done, another minute, well, maybe not. It sounds like she is. I think it's the entire Justice League cast is gone now. But they're not even doing Wonder Woman. They're doing a Paradise Island Game of Thrones thing. If that gets off the ground, the position they're in is, well, can you really do that? That sounds like an expensive show. So, don't know. And with the stumbles and the nastiness over Henry Cavill, that hurt them a lot more than I think they anticipated. And also, you see the results. Sure, The Flash was a troubled movie, and thanks in no small part to the scandals of the main star. But also, just like Shazam: The Fury of the Gods, which, granted, it's not as good as the first Shazam film, but it's not that bad. There's some stupid stuff here and there. They could have shorn that up. But other than that, it was all right. But it bombed, until The Flash came and bombed worse. That was pretty bad. But it was also a film that you've got your new head of DC films telling you that these movies are dead ends. They don't mean anything. The only one that might mean something, I suppose, is Blue Beetle, but that's because clearly it's more of a standalone movie in and of itself, so you could pluck it in and out of the two universes, if you will, provided it does well. Well, with this type of attitude and the superhero fatigue, which is a real thing, primarily due to the idiocy of Marvel, just deliberately undoing their brand with one stupid film after another, with Spider-Man being the big highlight, but that's just an aberration. And then Guardians, James Gunn does well, but it's all in a declining trajectory, and so I don't know. But, DC was stumbling around and messing up, and how many hands have had it, but Marvel has done great damage to the genre now, which is odd considering they're the ones who built it, at least in its current status, and being more reflective of the comic book universe approaches that the two main brands did, which was always a shared universe of these characters. So it's sad that DC just never could, get going. And so you've got a whole year of two more movies, and Aquaman's probably going to just flatline too. And that's on Gunn in that announcement. You can throw Zaslav in there too, I guess, certainly. But I don't know how else they were supposed to handle this. Of course, I thought it was a mistake to get rid of the cast and all that, but they've built a Mount Everest-sized hill to climb for this DCU endeavor. Superman Legacy has to be the best Superman film. Certainly a very spectacular film. It can't just be good. It can't be okay. It can't. It has to be really spot on and great. And there's elements I've heard about it from little teases from Gunn that sounds okay, and others that don't. And so I don't know, but it looks quite the challenge, and a lot of factors against it more than for it. So, but here's the first step. Well, I guess the script was, but here's the first step in you've got your actors, and they look good. So, but that's only the look of it. But it's still. Mount Everest is a big mountain. I've heard tell it's the big one. And that's the position that a lot of them at Warner Brothers have put themselves in. So time will tell. They have time, and perhaps to abandon some things and improve others and that sort of thing. But that's the only thing at the moment that they have on their side. They've got to endure two more movies that may drag it down, but I don't think even as bad as they might do, perhaps they won't do as bad as The Flash, which might just be the worst of it. So after that, hey, the only way to go is up. Yeah, well, let's hope it's up, and away.